You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 658. It's the final hype for the Mandalorian Grogu. We are just days away from the premiere of this movie, and joining me tonight, as always, is Chris. Chris, welcome, man. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well. Trying to stay dry.
Yes,
but I'm doing well.
Yeah. Before we actually roll into this, just a bit of a note for anybody that's watching the live feed. And we both are in Austin, and we've got a massive storm that is about to swallow Austin completely. So no guarantees that this show is going to run its full length, or that we don't lose power, or some other thing happens because of the weather. But we're both safe. The show may not be safe. So if that happens, we'll try to roll with the punches. And if it's really bad, or we lose power or internet or something, then we'll have to reschedule and do that whole thing. So just a bit of a warning up front on our current environment situation here. So fingers crossed. May the force be with us. Okay. Hey, so before we get started, how about we jump into some thank yous and shout outs to our Patreon members?
Absolutely. So we'd like to thank our new members that are part of our Patreon crew. We have two new. We are all the Republic members. We have Jason, and then we also have R2B2. B as in boy, not D as in dog. R2B2, and then our newest now part of the tribe member is Krista Martinelli. Thank you so much for joining up and being part of the Patreon tribe. The rest of our now part of the tribe members are Will I Am, my girl Paisley, I've Got a Brad Feeling, Rita Reborn, Jacob, Josh, Uncle Leon, Sharkman Dan, your bro Alex, Jackson, Daz, Risk, Danny, Borda, Dante, and Kat, who is Vader's girl. Thank you so much for your support. Also, at our highest tier is our Delusions of Grandeur tier. We have now This Is Rod Racing, my guy Rod, Rob, Steve, and my girl Vanessa. Thank you so much for your support of the Cantina Cast.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And I'm being told that my camera is trying to, it's got a little square around it. It's because I had to restart everything and I forgot to turn that off. So I don't know. I probably can't get to it now. I'd have to actually go around and turn it all off. So you're going to have to deal with the squares. I think one up versus CPUs that someone is honing in on your face. That could be.
Yeah, as long as you don't see a red dot anywhere around there, you're okay.
I'll just try not to move. I'll try to be really still and see if it doesn't do the tracking. Hey, also, what do we got coming up as far as shows go? Actually, I'm going to go try to turn that off and you talk. You're right back.
Absolutely. So programming notes here. Tomorrow, we're going to go back to the road to Celebration as we talk about the ticket hangover. We're going to invite you guys to come on and in the comments, share your experiences if you tried to buy Celebration tickets. We're going to have some special guests on, talk about their experiences buying Celebration tickets. And we'll talk about some of the feedback that fans have given this round of ticket sales and some of the controversy that's come up. And then, what were you able to successfully secure when in regards to tickets and hotels? We're going to talk all about that tomorrow night in part 3 of our Road to Celebration series. Then on Sunday, May 24th, it's going to be our Mandalorian and Grogu review. So no, unfortunately, we weren't picked to get to go view some of the early screenings that happened yesterday, but we're going to see it this Thursday like regular people, and we're going to review it this coming Sunday. And I'm excited. The hype train really hit us hard, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but it really hit us hard these last like 2-3 weeks. So I am super hype, and I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Like, I think you and I are both seeing it Tuesday night or Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And I want to talk about that here when we get into kind of like the final hype stuff as well. So don't forget, tonight we are going to reveal the first winner of the poster. I'm going to do a random check here, a random number between 1 and the number of people that we have that have submitted questions. We'll pick somebody randomly and we'll announce it at the very end after we've read all of the questions. So good luck to you guys. If you're looking for the posters, or this is the poster here. This is the one that you've seen. They were given out at the 25-minute preview thing. It's a double-sided, so you got the IMAX poster on one side, and then you've got the special print that was made just for that event here on this side. And so you can hear that it's a pretty heavy stock poster as well. So it's really cool. Love the artwork on that one. Again, we'll give that out here in just a little bit once we get to the questions. I do want to kind of just go over the rules, if you will, for the questions, because I know we've had some people ask, especially new folks. So if you've been here for any number of times now or a number of months, then you know that we've given these out for Skeleton Crew. We did it for Acolyte. But all you have to do is just send us a question each week. So each week we'll give away one poster. We're going to try to give away at least 6 posters, maybe more. Just depends on if we have enough content to kind of extend. We'll know more or less once we've had a chance to see the movie and we start kind of laying this out. But once a week, you can enter to win a poster by sending us a question. You can send that question on Patreon, social media, or you can send an email to hellothere@cantinacast.com. We will mail these posters off in a nice little protective tube. And the question really just needs to be about the Mandalorian Grogu. So it can be about the television show. It can be something technical. It could be, something that you saw after the movie came out and you've got a question about it. Feel free to shoot those over to us and we'll give those away to you guys. So that's it. So again, we've already picked somebody for tonight. Well, we will in just a few minutes here. And we'll get to the questions here at the very end. So before we get into all that, I want to get your thoughts. I know you said you were extremely hyped. I think that's probably the case right now. It's very palpable. The hype is so real. There's been a lot of reasons why that's been the case. We've had a lot of marketing stuff. There's been a lot of previews. A lot of people have seen. It seems like everybody has seen the movie now at this point. There's so many reviews out there, not only just from like the actual media outlets, but just a lot of influencers, people that were picked randomly at different places. There was a couple different special showings throughout the U.S. last night. So it seems like there's been a lot of discussion about that today. And I've really tried to stay away from a lot of it because I was worried that people would be spoiling things. But that said, I guess going into this, what it is, maybe let's kind of talk really quickly about the TV show itself. Going back to the TV show, what was it that captivated you about the Mandalorian Grogu? What was it that really, got you interested in the characters? And then when you look at the movie that's coming out, how much of that is still there? And is that really what you're still looking for going into the movie? Or do you think things have changed in terms of expectations and what you want from the movie?
So I get my first interpretation of the show way back in, when did it debut? In 2019, I think, was what caused me to fall in love with it was the fact that it felt like Star Wars, but it also felt like a Western.
Mm-hmm.
And Filoni and Favreau were able to marry those two genres, I guess you could say, very well. And there are parts, actually, I don't want to say there are parts. There were the whole thing, even from season 1 to season 3. To me, it all felt like Star Wars, but Favreau and Filoni were able to put a different spin on things to make it the same but different.
Mm.
And I think that's what made it for me. Don't get me wrong. The characters, they're top-notch characters. They were written very well. And then obviously, when I first saw Grogu as, the child, I mean, I sat back in my chair. I was like, that's a Yoda.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said. I said,
right.
That's a Yoda.
A Yoda.
What the heck?
Yeah.
And obviously the champion of the story, or the champion of this part of the franchise, I should say, is Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
We would not be here if it wasn't for Grogu and how he's captivated the fandom. Even for folks that had issues with the prequels, the sequels, it seems everyone has been captured by Grogu. And for me, what I want to see out of this particular movie is I know everyone's concerned about, okay, is it just going to be a television show and it just blown up in an IMAX screen and it's all going to be the same? I don't think that's going to be the case, but what I want to see is I want to see the two main characters grow, whether that's they grow together or they grow apart. And I don't mean like grow apart, like split up. I mean like
individually,
their character arcs individually, they grow.
Right.
But I want to see them grow. And I think if the movie can do that effectively. Yes, the action scenes are going to be amazing. The effects are going to be amazing. We're going to get some good looking practical effects, which if you're an old head like me and an original trilogy guy, practical effects are the way to go whenever it makes sense, right? Um, so I think from a movie spectacle perspective, I think it's going to be just fine. What I want to see is I want to see the characters grow, the two
Yeah.
main characters grow, and
Yeah.
I want to, I want them to be in a different space from when the movie starts to when it ends, and I think we will get that. I know there hasn't been much talk. I know a lot of folks have seen it already. I know a lot of like influencers or folks like us that have podcasts or they run conventions. They've been able to see it already, and those people have said that it's a great movie. The critics have seen it too, and that's kind of been a mixed bag. But I've never really put too much weight onto what critics think.
Mm.
I want to hear what like people like me think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't review
Yeah.
movies for a living, so I want to know what fans like me think. And so far, from what I've read, it's been overwhelmingly positive. So again, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Character development for these two, because obviously Grogu and Mandalorian, I would say they're kind of the co-tent poles of the Disney Star Wars era, and but they just can't be stagnant. They have to move forward as well. So that's what I'm looking for out of this movie, and I think it'll deliver. Um, I'm really excited. These last 3 weeks, it seems like, especially from on social media, Star Wars and Lucasfilm have been putting out maybe 3 to 4 posts a day
Yeah.
with video from promotional appearances by the stars or from the red carpet, or summer blockbuster. Now here recently has been some of the positive reviews. We're getting a lot of stuff from them, and every time I see something, it just gets me that much more excited for this coming Thursday.
Yeah, me too. And I would say, that this series took everybody by surprise. And I would say it's gone through kind of a natural evolution of sorts, right? When it first came out, I think we were all attracted to the idea of having a bounty hunter Mandalorian and this Western theme of Star Wars with influences from samurai and Japanese influences, that sort of thing. That all sounded like too good to be true. It came out, we were all captivated by that. And then it slowly drifted in, for me personally at that point, it shifted into the familial aspects of Star Wars, which is something that I've always enjoyed, right? The family aspects of it all. And now we had this kind of like pseudo father and son. It wasn't the first time in Star Wars where you had a family that chose to be family rather than, was family by birth or blood. And that was very interesting to see. But more specifically, just, you had this person who, didn't necessarily have a heart of gold, but had a moral compass. And they suddenly have now taken on this small child by, if you think about season one, like he almost can't even explain why he did it. He was about to take off, leave the child there, but there was something nagging at him that said, no, my destiny or something doesn't feel right about this, or my destiny lies with that child in some way. Fast forward, it turns into this clan. You've got this father and son duo. You've got the comedic aspects of, him trying to essentially raise a child and what that was like, saying nothing of the fact that he is this species of Yoda that we thought was, untouchable. Like we would never have thought we would see anything else besides Yaddle and Yoda. And here we are now with a little baby. And so what were the implications of that? What did that mean for the character? And then as the story went on into like season 2 and 3, they started toying with this idea of like, hey, these are two totally different worlds, absolutely, 180 from each other. You've got the Jedi and you've got the Mandalorians who, at least in Legends, were known to have fought each other for thousands of years. And a lot of the way the Mandalorians are a direct result of fighting with the Jedi, and the way the Jedi fight and their disciplines are a lot of direct result from fighting the Mandalorians for so long. But yet here you have these two kind of being merged together for the first time in a long time. And that became a very interesting thing, which opened up to Luke Skywalker coming in. And then we got some of the training from the Book of Boba Fett. And so it's gone through this evolution. And I felt like at the end of season 3, we were kind of at a happy place and thought, okay, this was kind of like the preamble. This was setting up the calm before the storm being, I don't know, heir to the Empire, Thrawn, something major happening, right? And that's kind of where it left off. I think going into this movie, I think all of that's been satiated for me. I don't know that I'm looking for any of that in particular. I like the idea that these characters are going to grow. I think just from a purely agnostic standpoint of what does a movie need to do, I'd like to see characters grow. And so, to your
Mhm.
point, yeah, I think they should grow. Grogu probably has the most potential in this movie to grow simply because he hasn't really done much of anything outside of growth, right? He's always been just kind of the character that's, sometimes he's
Comic relief.
the comic relief.
He's a
Other
cute.
times he's an infant that needs help
Yep.
and can't take care of himself. Other times he becomes the hero
The
in
hero,
the story.
exactly. Yep.
And now that he's wearing, like, he's in this, like, in between two worlds, or maybe he's just in one, where he's had a touch of the Jedi world, the Force world, but now he's in this Mandalorian role. At some point, I'd like to see what that's going to look like between Mando and Grogu, where he allows him to kind of grow and say, okay, you need to do this stuff on your own. I think
Mhm.
there's good indications that he probably will have kind of his own little side mission, maybe with the Anzellans. We've seen a lot of those from the clips. That might be the opportunity for him to grow. But then I think you've got other characters around him that are going to influence him, whether it's Road to the Hut, whether it's that swamp thing that's talking to him there a few times. I think those characters are probably going to do a lot to influence his growth in some ways as well. So I guess I'm going in with that. And then at the end of the day, I really just want a fun ride. Like, as much as I want this movie to kind of be the first step in a larger, episodic storyline that sprawls over the course of the next, 5-10 years in real life, maybe in even the galactic life, that may not be the case. And I think I'd be okay with that. I think I'll probably have some disappointment just because of where I knew the storyline was going to go with, the Filoni verse and Galactic New Rangers, and how we were teased that all this was going to be building up to something. That might be a slight letdown for me. But I think at the end of the day, if I go into that movie, I get these two characters, I'm refamiliarized with just how much I love the Mandalorian television series. It's amped up by better sound, better effects, better character designs, or some of the puppetry work. And it all fits into kind of a single narrative that doesn't build on anything. I'm not going to be hugely disappointed. I think I'll be fine. But if I had my wishes, I think that's where I would want the story to go. So that's what I'm looking for, I guess, going into it. But I'm not like my expectations are, let me ask you that too. Like, my expectations are pretty average, I would say, for a Star Wars movie. And that's not because I'm not excited about the trailer or the movie, but in watching the trailers, and I'll come back to this in a little bit because some folks are asking questions here that we'll get to you. There's still some things in here that I'm scratching my head going, like, what are we doing here? Like, what exactly are we trying to accomplish with the story? What are we trying to tell? And it could be very simple. It could be very, by the book. It's very blank. There's not a whole lot to it. It's very simple, very plain. That may be the case, but that's the only part that I'm still scratching my head on. So my expectations are going in, again, mediocre, not where I was with The Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens or any of the other movies, to be honest. I'd say it's even probably lower than Solo, because I think I had some higher expectations for Solo. But where are your expectations? Are you going into this thinking like, hey, this is going to be a huge movie, and if it's not, I'm going to be disappointed? Or have you set the bar a little bit low based on what you've seen, or what other reasons have, if that's the case?
So since 1999, I have gone into every Star Wars movie with minimal expectations, only because while I enjoyed The Phantom Menace a lot, it didn't strike every chord for me. That first year it was released. Now it's a
Mhm.
classic and I love it, and nothing can touch it when it comes to nostalgia.
Right.
But since then, I've gone into every Star Wars movie with minimal expectations. Uh, the expectations that I have to do with exactly what I said. Character development, which some movies succeeded very well and some movies didn't really do too hot on that. And then, am I entertained? The effects, the action, all that. Those are my expectations. I never go in expecting it to be the best thing ever. Even when The Force Awakens was announced and the hype leading up to The Force Awakens, which we've talked about on the show a couple times,
Yeah.
it, it it's always been just basic, or like average, like you said, average expectations. Nothing too grand, nothing too low. Um, but the situation is with Star Wars, uh, uh, you know, everyone has their own opinion of what a good Star Wars movie should be, and I'm sure in our experience, in my experience, definitely, no one has the same opinion of what a good Star Wars movie should be. It's they may be similar, but it's not the same. So if that's your standard and you go in and it doesn't hit every note, it's gonna lead to a sense of disappointment, even if the movie is good, right? Um, so for me, I try to just go in as okay, it's I know it's Star Wars. I know I love Star Wars, and I go in, knowing that I focus on the positive aspects of it, and that character development. Am I entertained with the action? Are the effects good? That's really it. So it's the same with, and it's been the same with all the movies that come out in the Disney era, from The Force Awakens to The Rise of Skywalker, and you know, for the most part, I enjoy all of those movies. Um, and I don't expect any different from this one, The Mandalorian and Grogu. I expect it to be good. I expect to be entertained. I do think that based off what we've seen so far, we're going to have the character growth that I'm looking for. So I'm going in again, average to look, expectations, average, uh, um, demands of what the movie should be. I
Mhm.
just want it to entertain me, and I want those characters to grow. If
Yeah,
that
and
happens, I'll be fine.
yeah, and we'll talk about that Sunday when we do our breakdown,
Mhm.
or our kind of initial reaction after the movies that come out. We'll kind of revisit this topic of whether or not that movie met expectations, set them, or exceeded them in some way. Okay, so before we get into any other questions, I just want to kind of have like a kind of cold opener, if you will, there to talk about that. But typically, what we do on our final hype shows, we get into kind of like the tail of the tape, which is kind of all the gory details: who's directing, who's writing, budget, projections. Now that we've got those, usually this is great because we're just a few days away, so those projections are coming out already, and generally at this point they're pretty accurate. I mean, they could be off, and there's certainly things that'll influence them, but we want to get into that after we've had a chance to do that. We'll get into a couple more talking points, and then we'll roll right into the questions that you guys have submitted for us. So for anybody that has not been following this movie, and if you're watching this feed or listening to the podcast, this is probably not you, but I still like talking about it. Jon Favreau is the one that's directing it. Produced by Kathleen Kennedy. I think this is her official last one that's being produced. I thought she might be on Starfighter. I say that now. I think she is. But Kathleen Kennedy, Ian Bryce, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni are all the producers. The cast, we'll talk about those maybe as the questions go on. But of course, we've got Pedro Pascal. Shout out to Strong Mustachio saying I'm here just for Pedro's, but basically what she was saying earlier. Sigourney Weaver, the princess, the queen of sci-fi as Colonel Ward. Jeremy Allen White as Rhoda the Hutt, Johnny Coyne as Janu. We'll talk more, I think, a little bit about that character. We've got some information here. Recently, Dave Filoni as Trapper Wolf has been cited as coming back. Steve Bloom as Zeb, Martin Scorsese as Hugo, Matthew Willing as Hog's Breath, and then we've got the twins and we've got Embo. So, the cast itself is a lot of familiar faces. If you've been watching The Mandalorian and Grogu, some of these faces may not be familiar to you. You would have to have watched the Clone Wars and maybe the Clone Wars movie, Book of Boba Fett. It's probably another one in here that you'd have to watch. And then they've got some new characters that we're not familiar with. The movie itself has been written by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Noah Clore. The music, Ludwig Göransson. We're going to talk about all this in a second. We've got some thoughts here. The runtime, though, you're looking at 2 hours and 12 minutes. So a little bit longer than I think some of the sequel movies were, right? But not unreasonable by any means, especially these days. Movies tend to be about that 2 hour mark. 2:15 seems like they go a little bit long in the tooth, and then most movies seem to try to shy away from the 2:30 unless they've got something they just have to get out and tell.
Right.
Here's and I'll wrap up and kind of get your thoughts each one on one of these. But the budget right now, they're estimated $165 million. I assume that does not include any of the marketing, because that's been a just crazy whirlwind tornado of marketing that's been coming out. But $165 million on budget. Deadline, as of today, posted an article that was talking it right now. It's projected for 160 million worldwide, and it's looking about 50-50. So 80 million domestic, 80 million international. If you compare that with Solo opened at $155 million. So they are projecting this to do a little bit better than Solo, but not much. Is that a red flag? I don't know. We'll talk about that here in a second too. And then in total, we've got 4,300 movie theaters and 425 IMAX theaters, which, we've talked about this as being the first movie filmed on IMAX equipment, IMAX cameras. You and I saw the 25-minute preview in IMAX. I think we both can attest that it does make a difference. It
It
is
does
more of
make
an
a difference.
immersive
Yep.
viewing experience, especially for Star Wars. It felt different than any of the other movies because of that feature alone, or that aspect alone, no pun intended. But yeah, a lot of IMAX theaters are going to be carrying this thing. So let's maybe start with, and we don't necessarily need to talk about the characters, but runtime, 2 hours, 12 minutes. How are you feeling about that? Do you think that's, I mean, the story needs to be what it is. And, if it is a standalone story versus one that picks up later and continues on build world building, how are you feeling about the runtime on that?
The runtime's fine with me.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was expecting it to be between 2 and 2:15. At 2:12, that's kind of what I expected. That's not an issue for me. And I know what you're talking about when you mentioned earlier that, once they get past that 2:15 mark, the movie could kind of start to drag and whatnot. But there's been some great movies that have been 3 hours long. Um, so as if the movie is good, if the content is good, it can be as long as it wants to. But back to, in this, comparing it to other Star Wars films, yeah, 2:12, I don't have an issue with that runtime. I think that that's the sweet spot for them.
Do you think we have a red flag here with the terms of a budget? Because you remember it was just a few weeks ago. Let's roll back just 1 month ago. Okay.
Mhm.
You and I were on the show. We were talking
Mhm.
about how where the hell is the Solo stuff? And we're like, okay, well, they've got celebration announcements coming up here. They've got tickets going to go on sale. We've got the Maul Shadow Lord
Right.
series coming out. So they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. But it was pretty dry. And even prior to that, for a Star Wars movie, for the first movie in 7 years, it did feel like it was a lackluster approach to the marketing. Like there wasn't enough, word of mouth that was going out. There wasn't enough spin. There wasn't enough water cooler talk. And then suddenly, right after Maul Shadow Lord ended, or maybe just a week before that, it has been nonstop. I cannot escape the marketing on this thing. It shows up on every channel that ABC owns. There's so many different tie-ins, and we'll get to that, I guess, the marketing stuff in just a second. But my question is around, even with all of that, as much as we've seen here recently, the projection numbers have skyrocketed, right? They've gone up now to 160 million, which is still probably not where I think a lot of people would put the meter to kind of gauge this as being or is going to be a successful movie. But if it does make 160 million on 165, I mean, do you think that's a success? And do you think there's a potential that could rise and that this movie is going to catch fire and go really well in terms of word of mouth?
So, is it a red flag? Mm, I wouldn't call it a red flag. Maybe call it a yellow flag. W- w- I've mentioned this many times that I think that this movie needs to be successful, not just break even, not just be a moderate success. I think this movie needs to be a complete success, not only for to show the execs at Disney that hey, look at this project, we put it together and we made all this money, but it's for the psyche of the fans. Because even though, yeah, Kathleen Kennedy is still in charge of this production, it's still going to be seen as Dave Filoni's first project under him being a co-president of Lucasfilm,
Mm-hmm.
and that for that reason alone, it needs to be a success. Because what's going to happen is if it's a moderate success or, God forbid it bombs, right? It has that because movies do that. They'll have that huge opening weekend and then just bomb.
Weekend
Um,
too. Yeah, right. It's when
yeah.
things get weird.
So if it's like that, the psyche of the Star Wars fans they're going to suffer because again, a lot of fans were not happy with what Kathleen Kennedy produced, and whether they were right or not, that's not what's in the discussion. We're talking about how they felt, and they weren't happy with Kathleen Kennedy. A lot of those fans were clamoring for Dave Filoni to be in charge because of the content that he delivered previously with Clone Wars, all the animated shows, and then The Mandalorian. Um, and if this one turns out to just kind of flutter out of the gate, that's gonna stymie this, like I said, stymie the psyche of the Star Wars fans, and then we're going to be right back to where we were with Kathleen Kennedy, and it could do that type of damage to fandom and the Star Wars property if this movie isn't successful. Um, do I think it's going to meet this mark of 160 million worldwide? I think it will. I noticed, because I had to reschedule my viewing this Thursday, and I noticed that when I initially looked at the theater that I'm going to see it at, there were like up from 3 weeks ago, there were like only three people at that screening. I finally bought my tickets like 2 days ago, and I got my other ones refunded, which the other one is actually sold out, which
Yeah.
that was good to see.
Yeah.
Well, now there's 3 tickets there because I refunded mine. But I'm going to a 10:15 screening, and now it looks like the theater is 80% full.
Okay.
So I think it's picking up. I think it will safely make that 160 million mark worldwide this weekend, if not more. But that's for all like popular movies. The real test comes in week 2, week 3. This movie has to have repeatable viewing, and it has to bring in your casual movie fan, which if you watch any type of TV or if you're on social media, you have seen a Mandalorian and Grogu commercial.
Mhm.
So the casual fan should know about this. It could be a situation where word of mouth will pick up, and people will see it and they'll come out to look for it. But I think, again, I'm not worried about opening weekend. I'm worried about weekend 2, 3, 4,
The drop off.
etc. Yep, exactly.
I think this movie has the potential to do well with word of mouth because I'll tell you this. And again, if you've been watching the show, listening to the podcast for any length of time, I've not always praised Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau for everything they've done. I think they understand Star Wars, they get it, and they feel like my friends growing up when we were playing Star Wars action figures. They feel like those same guys are writing that stuff, and I'm here for it. Like I will watch it. I love it. I love the whole being raptured and captured into like this whole member berries of being a kid and playing with my Kenner toys. I get all that. Like that pulls at my heartstrings all day, every day. But when I'm really going, if I'm being completely honest and agnostic and neutral about it all, they're not like Filoni isn't the best. He's not the strongest writer. He has a way of making you love characters, but it's a slow burn, right? You think about his characters, it takes time. He's built some really amazing characters and provided very huge depths of character development to them. But that took time. It took over the course of seasons, right, for you to really get there. With Jon Favreau, I think he's got moments where he directs a movie and he's got some really great cinematography. A lot of the framing's great. Action sequences sometimes can be hit or miss for me with him. And, during the TV series, some episodes were much better than the others, right? And that's just kind of been the case. And so I guess where I was going is when you go and you look at who's writing, who's directing, I'm expecting that not to be the selling points. Like no one's going to look at this and go, holy crap, this is an Andor and it deserves Oscar nominations across the board for directing, for writing, for acting. That's not this movie. It's at least I don't think it is. I could be wrong. What I think is going to happen is people are going to get in there and go, holy man, I really love these characters. And now I know it's been 3 or 4 years, but I now remember why I was so captivated by that television series and how much I really love Grogu. My kids love them, and how much I love The Mandalorian. They're going to go back and talk to other people. And so I think it has the potential to do really well. I don't think it's going to scorch the box office in weekend 2, but it may not be as big of a slump as people are suspecting it to be, because I think it's going to resonate with fans. I think you're going to go into this movie, have a good time, enjoy it as I hate to say a summer popcorn flick, because that just feels, I don't know, offensive to Star Wars movies.
It kind of when people say that, it kind of cheapens the movie.
Exactly. And that's not that's not what I'm saying, but yeah.
Here's the thing is that's probably, at least based off what I've seen so far, that's probably what we're going to get. And that's okay. I think that's perfectly okay. If it's just action type of nonstop action and effects and whatnot, because that's what a Star Wars
Screen
movie
candy.
is.
Right.
Exactly. But Star Wars is like you said, I've said, it's a story about family and people. And those aspects have to be addressed in a Star Wars movie, especially this one when we're talking about a father and an adopted son.
Yeah.
So that has to be there. So while I think that's the closest description to what this movie is going to be, you're right. It cannot be just that.
And I think honestly, when you think about like we've got Memorial Day coming up this week.
Mhm.
You've got the summer. The kids are at least over here in Austin. This is the last week of school, right?
Yeah, same here.
And
Yep.
you've got parents that are going, okay, it's summertime. Like, what do you want to do? Where can we spend our money? Where should we invest our money to keep our kids happy and keep our sanity? Going to see this movie is not going to be a bad decision. You know what I mean? Like the reviews are going to be good enough that someone looks at that and goes, "Hey, I've heard good things about it." Or this, why don't we go ahead and just take them to the movies? That sounds like fun. They liked Grogu 3 years ago. They're a little bit older now. Let's go check it out. And I think they're going to walk out of that theater saying, "Oh, that was a lot of fun. Like that didn't feel like we wasted $100 going to on tickets and $70 on popcorn. We all had a really good experience." And I think that's going to be told and passed along. And I think that's where word of mouth will spread. So I think if you're going in with and this kind of speaks to the expectations of what you want or what you hopefully are going in with. So, as far as like the $160 million, we'll see. I don't get too caught up in all that. Here's what I will say though, too. If the fandom gets really upset because this movie doesn't do $1 trillion or $200 billion or whatever, $1 billion. It's just, I'm being facetious here, but if it doesn't do like $1 billion and it's not end game type numbers, there's people that are going to be really upset. Does it sway anything for the executives and shareholders of Disney? I don't think so. Like we've already tested this, and I won't get into that because we've done other shows on this already. But if you think about it from this perspective, yes, I know this is Dave Filoni's first movie, and it's Kathleen Kennedy's name is all over it. But it's very easy for him, and this feeds into like the corporate executive world of how things get spun, right? Mm-hmm. If it does really well, then they go, "Oh, look, it's Dave Filoni, it's Jon Favreau. We got the magic back. This was the right move. Everything is great." If it doesn't do well, then it's easy to say, well, this was a transitional movie. It happened right. Kathleen Kennedy was kind of coming off of, being the president, and it was Dave Filoni that was kind of inheriting this. And, they were put under pressure by executives at Disney to get something out because it had already been 7 years since we had a movie. And so, it didn't do as well as we want, but we've got Starfighter coming up ahead, or we've got this new roadmap of movies. And I think they'll try to measure themselves against that. So I think that will be enough for them to kind of look past any of the negative feedback that they get from the fandom, number one. And then two, I think they'll be able to look past the box office numbers as so long as it breaks even. Like, I don't think even if it didn't break even, which I think it's going to at least at a minimum, but even if it didn't break even, I think they would still be able to look at that and go, okay, well, that was just then. We're on a totally different course now, shareholders. We're on a totally different course now, executives, and, stay on the boat. We're going to continue to make this, and it's going to get better. I can see them spinning that way because it happens all day, every day in corporate America with other things not exclusive to movies. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I know that we spent a lot of time on that one, but I want to get into just some more kind of general questions here about some of the stuff that we've already kind of been talking about. Going back to this idea that this has been 7 years since we've had a Star Wars movie. When I was looking, I was like, no, that can't be true. 2019. Yeah.
2019.
7
December
years.
2019. Yep.
Yeah, December will be 7 years. So 6.5 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. Maybe that says something about this show. I don't know. But, you think about this movie, and during that 7-year period, we had the Rey movie that was, still in the works, announced or whatever. We had Rogue Squadron that was announced. We had Rian Johnson's trilogy. We've had a ton of other projects. And yet this is the movie that is going into theaters just 5 days from now. That feels kind of weird in some ways. It feels like this is pure conjecture on my part, and maybe someone's already talked about this, but you think about Disney's approach of, hey, we're getting out of television and we're getting out of movies and we're going into television. No. We're getting out of television now. We're going back into movies. Oh, we're going to cancel this movie. We're not going to be able to get this movie. We're not going to be able to get that movie out. And then weirdly, what they end up doing is going to the television portion of what they were trying to get away from and bringing them back to the big screen as a way to maybe cash in, or I hate to say that because that's not what they're doing, but there was some magic there 3 years ago that everybody was captivated with. Do you think that's enough? Do you think there's still that magic there? Do you think it's going to be rekindled? And I don't know, I guess your thoughts on this being the movie that we get after 7 years and not something that's more episodic in nature. It's not part 11 or, the start of a new trilogy somewhere.
So I don't think that we're going to get to that level with this movie, and I don't think Lucasfilm and Disney expect this movie to be at that level. I think it's what it is, and I don't want to say it's a doorstop, but I think this movie
No.
is something that was like, okay, let's get this IP back where it originally started, back into the theaters. Let's get them in there. Let's get something in there that we know, or let's get a property from this IP that we know people love, and let's make a movie and just get people back put their butts in the theater seats so they can watch a Star Wars movie. Now, again, I don't think this will be one of those. I think this is good. It's, if anything, it's the primer. I think it's the primer coming into this next generation of Star Wars movies. I think with Starfighter, because we've already gotten several promotional images from Starfighter. There have been articles on Starfighter already, and they just released this past week. They released like a production patch that was used, which is in the style of the classic Star Wars logo.
Mhm.
Um, I think I think they're going to put a little bit more eggs in the Starfighter basket, and we're getting this movie here because we love the characters, and this kind of like gets the ball rolling on this particular generation of Star Wars movies. I don't think they expect it to be a tent pole. I don't think they expect it to be, make episode 7 type numbers, or even Rise of Skywalker type of money. But I do think what they want to put something out there that's good, that's familiar, that still serves a purpose in the universe, but it's not something that's going to hold up the franchise, or start us down the road of getting the franchise back into theaters the way it was. I think this is here so that they could say, hey, we're still here, we're still focused on making Star Wars for the big screen, and this is just the first little piece. You're going to get bigger pieces, in the coming years. I think that's what we're moving to, and I
Yeah.
think that's what what this movie, The Mandalorian Grogu, what it's going to do for the franchise.
Yeah. And I'd echo all of that. I think you and I have spoken about this in different terms and said enough there. In the chat, by the way, if you haven't had a chance, you can throw stuff in the chat there. Would love to hear from you guys. And if you have questions, you can throw them in. They won't be questions for the poster, but if you want to just general questions, feel free to do that.
So here's I want to say something to Limi Lateme's comment here. So my son, he doesn't play, but he has buddies that play Fortnite, and none of them he had never mentioned that they mentioned anything about Mandalorian and Grogu, but they saw that 10-minute preview
Yeah.
on Fortnite,
Yeah.
and now they're excited to see that movie.
Yeah.
So that was a good call by Disney to put a little preview in there.
Well, and they've got some close connections there, right? I mean, they just released a ton of content that was exclusive to Fortnite, some different modes and battles. They've done the same thing, with Rise of Skywalker. The infamous speech from Palpatine was released in Fortnite, and then they make reference to it in the Rise of Skywalker. And unless you knew the connection, you're like, what the heck are they even talking about? But yeah, he says, I watched the first 10 minutes of Fortnite. So cool. Yeah, they did release the first 10 minutes on there. So at this point, I think, again, you can watch the first 25 minutes of the movie end to end just simply by collating all of the different TV spots and promotions that they've generated. So good on them for doing that. Okay, how about so we talked about that the marketing blitz. We've talked about the number of TV spots. I'm surprised that we have as many tie-ins that we do. I mean, we've got like the Nilla wafers, right? Everybody's seen those now. We had the Burger King thing that I've done. What were some of I mean, there's a lot of them. I'm not going to name them all, but what were some of the ones that
the one
out?
The one that has stood out the most, and I never thought I would see a tie-in, is the Bed Bath and Beyond products.
I've only seen the candle. I don't know what else they've done, but
soaps and lotions and candles and like little um, chapstick carriers and stuff like that. I would have never in a million years think that I would have seen a Star Wars licensed product at Bed Bath and Beyond. But
Were you
here we
not
are.
around during the prequel era?
I don't think so.
I'm just kidding.
I,
I don't
I don't.
think
I
so.
don't. I was around, but I don't think they went that. Now I know they had like Padme shampoo and like Obi-Wan body wash, but it was just generic stuff. I mean, you could get
Right,
that at
right. I
Walmart.
get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't
So
like name brand tie-ins to this extent. So
exactly. And but what really again, it's smart by the Disney execs to do this is the way that they've been cross promoting this movie with their other properties, like you mentioned, ABC, ABC, ESPN,
mhm.
National Geographic, Hulu. Um, there's an other channel too that they have. I don't remember, but oh, and then like cross promoting with La Liga. I think at one of their last games, they actually had a 10-minute preview of the movie during halftime of a La Liga game,
Mhm.
which again they're cross promoting. Disney's cross promoting with across all their brands. I think that's great. They kind of did that with the sequels. Like I'm sure you remember, like for all of them, like the final trailer debuted at Monday Night Football, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it they did that, but not to this extent. And I think that that's just some smart marketing there on Disney's part. And I'm hoping it pays off with a better box office result.
Yeah. I don't know. There's probably some science behind all that. I'm sure that, someone out there, Gardner, I don't know who it is, some marketing company out there has gathered knowledge that says, if you do this, it equates to X amount of
Yeah.
dollars in return. If not, maybe it's just a way to kind of, get the word out there. But I mean, we're getting into like, we've got press on nails as a
Yes.
tie-in for the market for this movie. A
It's
Walla
crazy.
water bottles, which I don't mind water. They're good water bottles. I mean, $50 or whatever. They've got a special fossil watch that came out, a limited
Mhm.
edition like fossil watch. What's the rugs? Is it like
Oh,
Ruggiton or rugging? What was the name of that?
it's shoot, I
Drawing a
just
blank
saw
at it,
it.
but
It's
yeah, I
like
saw that
rugged. Yeah, it's like
rugged
rugged or
like that.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they got like rugs that are made for this. I think I put another one here with the Pandora jewelry. They've got a whole line of
Mhm.
Pandora jewelry that's been done. So it feels like this one doesn't have a lot of the knickknack stuff like you were talking about from like episode one or during the prequel era where it would just they'd slap the logo on everything. This
Right.
feels like more, I don't know, conscious decisions being made, more strategic decisions being made on some of this stuff rather than just putting it on everything. Although I say that if you go into the grocery store right now, they've got a ton of stuff that just has Grogu's face on it or the Mandalorian's
Right.
face on it just to have it on there without any kind of, they're not blue wafers. It's just, they're just
So
advertising the Mandalorian Grogu movie.
I have to ask, since you like to go to HEB in the middle of the night,
No.
uh, do they have cereal?
No, I haven't seen a Mandalorian Grogu cereal. That seems like a no brainer though, right? I mean,
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Something that's not stale.
yeah. Right.
Um,
No, I haven't seen any cereal there, but I guess the question that sits around this is, have they done enough? Is it too much? I think when you look at the TV spots, it does feel like more of a yellow flag than a red flag that they're doing so much of this, especially with the amount of footage they've released.
mhm.
Although I will say they've done a pretty good job of slicing up that 25 minutes and kind of scattering that, right?
Mhm.
Shotgunning that across all kinds of, outlets, whether it's social media or TV spots or stuff on their web pages or their, Disney Plus or whatever it is. They've really done a really good job of making that go a long way in terms of promotion.
Yeah, and it's just do I think the promotion is too much or they've done, like, too much? I don't. My thing is that they should have done it sooner. I
Yeah,
know
I
they
agree.
didn't want to step on Maul Shadow Lord, and rightfully so. I mean, Maul Shadow Lord deserved its time in the spotlight, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong.
Yeah,
But if there was, and it might be sacrilege because I know a lot of people really love that show. I really love that show. I think they should have moved Shadow Lord to earlier in the year or
push
like
it
at the
out.
end of the summer. So that way they wouldn't have to worry about stepping on promotion of that TV show for this movie. Because I mean, Star Wars has its hold on Disney Plus. I don't think there's anything that can change the importance of the Star Wars brand on Disney Plus. I think Disney Plus, we're set for a while. It's the movies, and I think if I was, and again, I'm not, so it's really just my opinion. I would have tried to move that show around so that way I could focus, put all my eggs and focus on marketing this return of Star Wars to the theaters, then given as like maybe a bookend to the year, uh, given them, Maul Shadow Lord as the bookend, and again another great, amazing series, and then we could have potentially had 2 wins this year. Not saying we won't, because Mandalorian is probably going to be successful, but I would have been in favor of moving Shadow Lord to another time so that we could get a good 6 to 8 weeks of lead up promotion to where we are right now.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made a big difference. But I don't run the thing. I just watch the stuff. So, hey, Dave Filoni, if you're looking for someone to run your marketing, hey, I got you right here.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not the person I'd go with first, but no offense,
Thank you very much.
Yeah. This is to the comments again. Jorge Castro says, this will be my first Star Wars movie experience with my 14-year-old daughter. Can't wait. Yeah, that's so special.
That is special. Yes.
It's something I think people are overlooking, because Star Wars is meant to be, in my personal opinion, and or maybe feel a little bit differently about this, but Star Wars is always meant to be experienced in a theater. There's just something about the sound and the special effects and the experience of just being in the theater and the communal experience of it all and witnessing that with other people that I think is just, it's agnostic to movies in general. Like every movie should be that way, but there's just something special about Star Wars. And I don't think, as for all the things that we've talked about, any negatives that you might go in, any fears that you might have going in, I think every time I've walked out of a Star Wars movie, even if it wasn't the greatest Star Wars movie, it was an experience. And you think about what that does, as how impressionable that is on younger audiences. That's exactly what you want to do, right? Because, they're building the future here. And so these are 2 characters that are going to be around for a very long time, maybe. Although the latest promotions seem to hint that Mando may not make it out of this movie. I think they're trying to toy with us, but that's kind of silly for anybody to think that was going to be the case. But, these characters are going to be around for a very long time. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that there are younger people going in, and this is going to be their Star Wars, the beginning of their Star Wars.
The beginning of their Star, exactly.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this too, is at its heart, Star Wars is not a franchise that revolves around the special effects, the spaceships, the laser swords. It's a story about people and a story about family. And it's best experienced when you are able to take, a family member who has an interest or who wants to hang out with mom or dad or is a fan like you, and is your son or your brother or your cousin or whomever. Star Wars is best experienced with family because it is a story about family.
Yeah.
Jorge, I'm happy for you, and I hope you and your daughter have a great time watching this movie.
Yep. Get the popcorn buckets if you can, man. Splurge.
Yeah. Splurge.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about well, not on this show. We're not going to talk about them now.
Yeah.
But
although that's part of marketing that geez,
right.
They have like 9 popcorn buckets between all of the theater chains. So it's crazy.
Yeah. We talked about that on, it was one of the Patreon shows. We kind of broke them all down. Okay. So you mentioned Thursday, you changed your schedule. Are you doing IMAX Thursday night?
Yeah, I'm doing IMAX Thursday night. Yep.
Okay. What's your schedule? Are you going to go see it regular theater? Are you going to do like a 40X? Are you going to go Alamo Drafthouse? Or is it contingent on how well you enjoy your first
So I am
viewing?
going to, it's a Star Wars movie. I'm going to see it more than once. So I'm starting with IMAX, and then I'm going to try to see it either Friday evening or sometime Saturday at Alamo Drafthouse because I want to get their pint glasses. And then I want to try to experience it in 3D. And if it's a great movie, I'll see it other times. But those are the viewings that I have planned, but I'm starting with IMAX because again, This is the first Star Wars movie that's made for IMAX, so I'm not going to miss it in that format at all.
Yeah, I'm saying IMAX for me on Thursday. That will not be. So I think I've said this before. When I go in and watch these movies, the first movie that ever, the first viewing, because usually it's about a 5 to 8 minimum for me. Like I'll go see a Star Wars movie 5 to 8 times, and that's usually opening weekend, right? This is the first year I don't have all that scheduled, and I'm waiting to see the IMAX, because if IMAX is such the experience that I want to see it more there, then I'll probably invest in doing that more than just once. So I don't want that to be a one and done thing. The other aspect of it, so what I was going to say is I go in the very first viewing, and because of the way my mind works, I can't shut it off. I am constantly trying to second guess. I'm analyzing the plot. I'm trying to throw up the hero's journey on top of everything. I'm looking at special effects. I'm looking at practical effects. I'm thinking about the writing. I cannot go into my first viewing and just experience Star Wars and love it as a moviegoer. It's just not I'm not wired that way. The second or third viewing, I've put all that behind me, and I can just go in and sit down and enjoy. Now that I've got all that out of the way, usually by that second or third viewing, I can just go in and enjoy it. Don't have a lot of expectations, just kind of have fun with it. And that's when I really kind of get a gauge as to whether or not how I feel about the movie. That first one is just way too analytical, and I've never been able to break that. So the first night, unfortunately, that IMAX is going to be that viewing. And that's why I feel like I'm going to owe myself at least one more IMAX viewing, maybe after viewing 4 or something. But I do plan on seeing it at least 3 or 4 times this weekend. I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'll probably end up seeing it, somewhere in that 5 to 8 range. And a lot of that is predicated on how much I enjoy the movie too, right? If it's a really great movie like Force Awakens, I mean, hell, I saw that one over 10 times. I don't remember what the final number was, but I just kept going back because I really enjoyed everything about it. So we'll see. That's kind of where I'm sitting at personally right now. But when you think about the movie too, is there any particular character you're looking forward to seeing the most? I know you talked about having the characters kind of grow. Is it more Mando for you? Is it more Grogu? Is it Road to the Hutt? Is it a character that we haven't, don't even know about? Like, what plot or story or what is it that you're looking forward to the most going into this movie?
So number one, first and foremost, is Grogu's journey. It's been, we've seen what he can do. Like you said, there are times, during the first 3 seasons of The Mandalorian that, he needed to be saved. He needed to be taken care of. And then there were times where he was the hero and he saved the day. I want to see him grow. So that would be number one. Second is you just mentioned him, Road to the Hutt. Last we saw him, he was stinky. And he's kind of
Stinky as a name, not smelly, although I guess
no, that's why
it was inferred.
He was smelly. That's why Ahsoka named him Stinky.
Yeah.
But he's been MIA since then. So I'm curious to get some of his backstory, especially since if we go to the book of Boba Fett, you would think that lineage would put him in charge of Tatooine when his dad was killed by Hutt Slayer Leia.
Right.
But no, it was Bib Fortuna, right? And then Boba Fett kills him, and then he takes over. So I've had a curiosity about, okay, what the heck happened to Rhoda since then, and now we're going to kind of get an answer. So I'm hoping that we don't just talk about the situation that Rhoda's in at the time, that we talk about where the heck has he been for these last, I guess 30 some odd years in the Star Wars universe.
He's been hitting the gym, apparently.
Yeah, he's been hitting the gym. And you know what? A lot of bodybuilders who are Star Wars fans are very jealous of his physique.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Road to the Hutt is going to be kind of one of the standout characters, because they haven't portrayed him as being, an antagonist in any way. I think the verdict is out on whether or not he becomes kind of like a good character or joins up with Mando or joins and helps out, which would be really crazy. And that wouldn't be the first time it's done. They've done it with Legends in the past, where they've had Hutts help the Republic out, and they actually were part of the Republic as well. But this would be the first time canonically that we could potentially have something like that. I think he's going to definitely be a standout character. I'm going into this hoping that we see more of Grogu as well. Like, I love Mando, but the whole series has really been focused around him, if you really think about it. And a lot of it, his decisions and where he's going. But Grogu is just one of those characters where he's been the victim, he's been a child, he's been very fragile. He's got a lot of potential, and we just haven't seen that manifest. I want to see what he does. Does he lean more into the Mandalorian aspects of his training? Does he lean more into the Jedi aspects? Has he found a way to kind of combine those two together? There's a funny scene in there where, in one of the trailers, where the Mandalorian is shouting, "Go, click the something over by the whatever." All this technical stuff is being spewed, and Grogu is like much like us as the movie goers watching this and going like, "There's all these buttons, and they're making all this garbage up about what he needs to do," and he's kind of lost. I would like to see him kind of have like that heroic moment where he just suddenly all that it becomes muscle memory, and he's able to like operate something, or finally do the right things and press all the right buttons, because he's told not to press the buttons. Maybe he does finally press the buttons, and he's able to kind of grow from that. I mean, it seems kind of trivial, but the bar is really low for Grogu, because we just haven't seen him do. We've seen him do some incredible things. Don't get me wrong. But we haven't really seen him grow as a character and who he's going to become, especially since he kind of went to that path of, this way or that way with Luke Skywalker, or the Mando way or the Jedi way. I want to see that grow. I want to see that develop, and hopefully there's enough time to get to some of that here in the storyline. They also hit on something too, and I want your thoughts on this, and then we'll get into the questions, I promise. They also hit on this whole thing about the young take care of the old, right? The old take care of the young, just like the young take care of the old. There's a new trailer or teaser that came out today, if I'm not mistaken, and they kind of allude to that Mando may not make it out of this, right? That he may not make it out of this movie. I don't think that's going to be the case, but it sounds like they are kind of setting Grogu up to be a heroic character and save Mando in some way. You and I speculated on this based on some of the trailers that we've already broken down, some of the scenes that we've already seen. But how far do you think they're going to go with that? Do you think we're going to have, I don't know, 30 minutes of Grogu and maybe the Anzellans out there, or maybe Grogu and Road to the Hutt teaming up together and doing something to kind of help the Mandalorian and save him?
So I don't know where the story is going to lead, but I do subscribe to the fact that at the end of this, Grogu is going to be the one that saves the day. And it's going to, I don't want to say that this particular title is going to flip, because I don't think, the Mandalorian is so popular, even outside of Grogu. But I think we're going to see these two kind of begin the process of where Grogu becomes the main heroic character, and the Mandalorian is kind of, I don't want to say sidekick, but it's kind of going to be the secondary hero of this particular story. I think it's not going to happen. I think we're going to start to see that turn. And I don't think we're going to see Mandalorian's demise in this movie. But what I do think is we're going to start to see the end of his story.
Mm.
And I think it's not, again, I think he'll survive. I don't think he's going to be killed off. And I'm not saying he's going to be killed in the future. I'm just saying we're going to start to see the end of his heroic story start with at the end of this movie, where it's going to be Grogu who's the hero, and he's the one that's going to be, the secondary hero, or relegated to, the behind the scenes or whatever. I think they're going to position Grogu to have it be him, and have it essentially be his show when it comes to those two moving forward. One thing I want to mention before we get to the questions, because I know we are running a little long on time, is your Razor Crest moment for this movie.
Razor Crest moment. So this is a moment for anybody that's not aware. This is a moment in a TV show or movie where we feel like the unexpected has happened. Like no one would have ever thought this, and it goes back to the Razor Crest being blown up, and us predicting that way back before they actually did it. So, okay. So the context of the question, mine is very simple, and it's very selfish. If you followed this show when we were breaking down season 1 of The Mandalorian, I was enamored by the relationship between the Mandalorian and Omera. Omera was the village person that he kind of, I don't know, had a thing for. He took his helmet off in front of her, and there was a moment there where he was kind of having to make a decision about whether he stayed there at the sanctuary among the villagers. Grogu was well loved by all the kids, and ever since they teased that, I wanted him to just kind of have a life away from all of this. And so selfishly, my Razor Crest moment isn't something really dramatic or big or kind of overarching or going to be episodic or change the the direction of the galaxy, because I don't think that's this movie, which is unfortunately kind of ratchets down the amount of anticipation that I have here. But I would love to see like Omera make an appearance or have something towards the very end, or maybe when they go back to, what's the main town that they're from? Navarro, right?
Navarro, yeah.
Maybe when they go back to Navarro, we find out that Omera has been there and she's moved in now and she's living there with them, and he's, has some kind of significant other that's part of his life. And even if they just hint at that, I would love to see that just kind of as a guest cameo appearance. Nothing big, nothing major. Doesn't have to have any kind of real long lasting effects on the story, right. But it's just a character that I really love. And I love that aspect of that storyline that I want to be able to at least revisit it in my own headcanon. So that
actually ties into what I just talked about his, Din Djarin's story, heroic story, essentially starting to wind down, which, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to die, but maybe he goes with Omera and he has a life outside of being a Mandalorian and being a gun for hire.
Yeah.
That could be the end of his story. My Razor Crest moment is I don't want to say I'm fairly confident, but I think there's a good chance this is going to happen. I think we're going to see Grogu with a lightsaber.
It would have to be Yoda's then. Right? Because I don't think unless Luke spent some time with him that we didn't see, right, off camera or in some other story that will be told, unless he spent some time in helping him build that lightsaber, which, he kind of feels like he's too young to build it. Even like the Padawans, the younglings didn't build their own. It wasn't until they got a little bit older, right, that they actually did that. But so the easy thing would be is just to, he had Yoda's lightsaber, right? He mentions that, I think, in season 3 or 3 of the Mandalorian.
No, it was Book of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett, yeah, sorry.
Which was Mando 2.5.
Yeah, whatever,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like that idea. And this is where I was talking about earlier. Like, I would love to see ultimately, and I think we even talked about this way back during season 1, that we were on this course to show Grogu as being the first Mandalorian / Jedi, and that he was kind of leaning on his techniques of both and becoming like this ultimate badass, and which would be great. Like, I would love to see that. But the thing that it always poses for me is this larger question of like, well, where the hell was he during The Force Awakens? And where was he during The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker? You know what I mean? Like, he would be just an incredible opposing force, no pun intended, somebody that could contend with anyone having those techniques or those abilities from both. Again, and I'm getting too far ahead of myself here with what you're saying, but it would be great to see him actually use it and maybe even be clumsy with it too. Like, I don't anticipate he's just going to go out there and start, become Anakin Skywalker 2.0 and how he wields it, but it's effective enough. And he knows a little bit about how to use it, or he's figuring it out on his own because he's never had that formal training per se from Luke Skywalker. Right. I'd love to see that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that, that's going to be part of his heroic character arc of him actually saving the day. He's going to use a lightsaber.
Yep.
I don't know who, but he'll find a lightsaber and he'll use. That's my Razor Crest theory.
Okay. Well, we'll see if either one of us is right on ours, but we'll have to wait. We'll reveal that, of course, on Sunday.
And the only other reason why is because in every Star Wars movie, not TV show, movie, there has been at least one scene with a lightsaber. At least one. So I think it only makes sense for him to wield the lightsaber in this movie. But yeah, we'll see. But that's what I think is going to happen.
I can't see it being anybody else either. But
exactly,
but yeah, it would have to be him. Okay, time for the questions. I'll kick us off, and maybe we can just kind of alternate back and forth on asking these questions. So these questions were submitted to you. We've got 11 total that we want to get through. Some of these have a part 2 or maybe a follow-up on it as well. So the first one comes from Pat Deely. Pat says, "Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time writer." Thank you, Pat. Thanks for reaching out. "What does the success of this movie mean for the future of cinematic universe of Star Wars? It feels safe to say that this movie being a big success would open up the door to a sequel, but what else would you like to get a shot at on the big screen? Thanks again from love for the show, Pat." Thanks again and love the show, Pat. Thank you, Pat, for writing in. All right, you got this first one. So what's your answer here? Well, what does the success of this movie mean for the future of cinematic universe of Star Wars? Does it have any bearing?
So I always have, and I mentioned this on the show previously. I think that the success of this movie, again, not only will it bode well for the psyche of the Star Wars fans, but I think if it does well enough, we may. I think it reopens the door for this Filoni-verse movie that we were promised years ago. And if this does well, Ahsoka movie and the Ahsoka season 2, especially if it's well received, I think if those two things happen, we start putting that Filoni verse movie back on the table. That's what I think happens. So that's what I would like to see out of this movie and the success of this movie.
Yeah, I think this is a good question. What does it mean for the future? I think the future is set. I don't know that this movie has as much of a. I don't think it's so much a barometer for the reasons that we talked about earlier, right? I don't think that's going to be the case. It's very well could be the case. But I do feel like the success, if it's very successful, then maybe they ramp up other projects that are not related to kind of the bigger overarching things.
Because let's be honest, the movie slate for Star Wars after Starfighter is still very fluid. I know, there's the Rey / New Jedi Order movie, which Ray was on not Ray. Daisy Ridley was on talk shows about 2 months ago. Yeah, same person. And she said that it's still moving forward, that they're still working on it and whatnot. Yeah. But now if you heard it, they still have its director, but they lost its writer. And so now they have to find a new writer. And, I think after Starfighter, everything's fluid. So I don't want to say that. And I know you said that you believe the movie slate is kind of set already. I'm not sure it is after Starfighter, because we really have, other than those little tidbits that didn't even come from Lucasfilm, they came from Daisy Ridley. We haven't heard about any other movement on Star Wars movie projects. So if this does well, Ahsoka season 2 does well, they could very well just say, okay, boom, let's start pre-production. Let's start working on the Filoni-verse movie and tie that all up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to be clear, like when I say the movie, like you're right. I'm not saying we have movies lined up. They probably do. They got to be thinking, they don't think ahead like 6 months, right? They think ahead years. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, I think the direction is clear that they want to go back to movies and move away from television or being so embedded in television and streaming services that it feels like movies are going to be the way to go. I just don't know what the movies are going to be. And I don't think this movie necessarily is going to have any kind of impact on that trajectory, unless it's super positive. I don't think it's going to have a negative impact is what I'm saying. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next question is from
Godfrey Guy Soul, and in quotations, in parentheses, Limitless Queens Volleyball Club.
Yep.
And the question is, will this Mandalorian and Grogu movie sneak in or implement any lore in canon? Will it be cinematic and take us away? Anyways, I'm super excited for it, and the Cantina cast is the best. Thank you very much, Godfrey.
Yeah.
I'll take the first stab at answering. I think in any Star Wars movie, especially when you're dealing with Mandalorian characters and Force sensitive / Jedi Padawan characters, lore is going to be part of that movie. And I think we're going to see aspects of not only Star Wars lore overall, but the lore that comes before, Mandalorians, and the lore that comes before, Jedi and the Jedi Order. I think we're always gonna have those pieces. We even had pieces of that in Andor, which really didn't have a Jedi presence at all. Actually, didn't have a Jedi presence at all. So I think definitely we're going to get that. As far as being a cinematic experience, I think they're going to hit that note as well. Just based off the 25-minute preview we saw back on May the 4th, that was pretty cinematic. So supposedly that's not even the most exciting action sequences in the movie. So we're going to get some more, and I think for sure it's going to be a cinematic experience. one of the things I hope we get out of this movie is that when we leave, that we say, "Yeah, I'm glad I saw it in the theater."
Mhm.
And if you can say that when you leave, then you know that movie was made for the theater. And I hope a lot of us will be able to say that when we leave the our first viewing of this movie.
Yeah. The question, it's a good question, and it's one that we've been debating about, talking about, theorizing about for some time now. Will this movie sneak in or implement any lore or and canon? Uh, on one hand, I'd love for it to, but on the other hand, the more I see the trailers and more I see about the footage that they've shown, it does feel like, unfortunately, for me personally, it's going to be more of a contained story. I think that's going to lend itself to critique of it being more of a season 4 or a spinoff episode or monster of the week kind of thing. Even though it is going to be cinematic, like I would agree. Like I've had a chance to watch that first 25 minutes. We saw it in a true IMAX a stadium and with all the IMAX sound. It was the first 25 minutes of the movie, not chopped up in bits and pieces. It was like literally beginning to at the beginning to the last part of it. We had the credits in the middle. It felt like a cinematic experience. It felt like I was watching Star Wars on the big screen for the first time. Did it feel like the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy or even the sequel trilogy? No. It was probably more akin to watching Star Wars like Solo or even Rogue One to some extent.
Mhm.
So and that's not a bad thing. It feels a little bit different, but it definitely feels like Star Wars. But it just
Mhm.
feels like this movie isn't going to have the really big, world building that I wanted to have right now in this era. I think that's still going to come. It looks like, based on at least what we have in front of us right now, that's probably going to be leaning or coming primarily from the television series. Like, I don't think we're going to get anything unless they've got something that's brewing a little bit later. This feels like it's going to be a one and done, and maybe we do get a season 4 that spins off of this at some point officially. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. So, okay. Next question is from Alex, one of our Patreon members, of course. What are the odds you guys are giving that we see a Grogu revelation, such as origin, speaking, major growth spurt, etc.? You talked about the lightsaber thing. I think that probably would
Yeah.
I don't know to what level that would qualify, but anything else for you there?
Well, we know they've, Filoni and Favreau have already said he's not going to talk. So we know that's probably out of the picture. I think, if anything, the revelation is we're going to see him be able to take that next step to actually be the hero, not just supporting the hero. But hey, if he comes out wielding a lightsaber there, that's a huge revelation in and of itself.
Mhm.
So I think the odds are very good that we're going to see something like that in this movie.
Yeah, they made it an effort. I mean, we talked about it, even little subtle things. When they roll the credits, and it's not a spoiler because we're talking about the title when it comes up in the movie. When they right before they roll the credits, one of the ships jumps off into hyperspace. We get kind of like this, we get the music start immediately, and it says the Mandalorian. That's all it says. And then it says, and Grogu, which comes in afterwards, right? So they make a point to say that this movie is truly about both of them. And so if it's gonna be about both of them, I think you're right. We're gonna have a moment where he is off doing his own thing, and he is going to be kind of like the hero, whether he's saving Mando or working with Rhoda the Hutt or whatever theories you want to come up with. He's going to have his moment to shine. It could be like the lightsaber thing. It could be him being very, I don't know. I was talking about punching the buttons up, right? Just having suddenly, having a lot of expertise in something that he's never shown before, competency in something that he does there. I think that's probably going to be the gist of it. I mean, the parts that we have seen him to, he still sounds like a baby, which I laughed every time I heard because I think it's the cutest thing in the world. He's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. He's just making little baby noises the entire time. So he is 50 years old at this point, but in the span of, that species, he's a kid. He's an infant still. He's still a child for all intents and purposes. I mean, hell, that buckle doesn't even fit him half the time. He doesn't get around very well. So yeah, that's probably as far as it's going to go, I think, quite honestly. So, but thanks for the question, Alex, on that one. Okay, you got the next one.
Yeah, our next one is from Jeremy Reese. Have you guys seen an IMAX showing in 3D? And if so, what are your opinions? I may try to do one of each, but may only have time for one. Thanks much. So yeah, I actually saw Project Hail Mary in IMAX 3D.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and it was a lot.
A lot
Um,
as in good lot or a
a
lot as
lot
in
as
like
in overwhelming
overwhelming?
because yeah, it was very overwhelming, especially that scene where they were going through the particle field and those red lights were coming
Oh,
like
yeah.
through. That was a lot.
Oh, I bet.
I had to take off my glasses and I've never gotten like motion sickness from a 3D movie, but the way that those red lights were moving in 3D, I had to take
Mhm.
off my glasses for like a minute to like recollect myself.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I have seen it, but first of all, if you haven't seen Project Hail Mary, it's a great movie. You need to go see it. But for a movie like that, where a lot of the visuals told the story, which Star Wars movies are supposed to do, by the way, but I'm talking about Hail Mary. Um, a lot of that imagery can be a lot. It can be really big. I think the first IMAX 3D movie I saw was the second Transformers movie at the Bob Bullock, and that was a lot. So I'm not going to say should you watch it in 3D, should you not. I'm making the conscious effort to watch it in regular IMAX and then watch it in 3D at a standard screen. Only because if everything becomes so like if the images popping off the screen become a distraction, even if I've already seen the movie, it's going to be, it's going to lessen my
The
experience of the movie.
Yeah,
So
I get that. I get that.
I'm going to pass on seeing it in IMAX 3D, but I am going to see it in a normal screen 3D. Um, but yeah, that's just my experience.
So I'll keep this short because I don't do 3D movies typically. I've never done an IMAX 3D, and the only reason is it goes back to the first one. I don't do a 3D in general because I wear glasses, and unfortunately, the weight, I'm pretty sensitive. Like most of my frames have to be super light, otherwise I get headaches, and it just hurts and it's uncomfortable. And I've never done contacts, so that's my fault, I guess. But when I go and do 3D glasses, I have to put those on top of my existing glasses, and it's just a miserable experience. I'm so I'm hurting, and I know I sound like a baby, really, right? First world problems,
No,
but it's real. Like it starts putting
it's real.
pressure there,
Yeah.
and then you're like, I'm 20 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, God, I just want to take these things off, but I can't because I can't see
Right.
the dang movie. So I just don't do 3D movies. So I can't speak from experience. The best I've ever done is I've got a 3D. In one of the rooms, I've got a big 65-inch 3D TV, and I can do home 3D type movies, and those are fun. But I have the same problem there, So I just don't do them very often. But I imagine it's probably cool. It may be a lot, depending on, especially with how fast paced this is. At least that first 25 minutes that you and I have
Mhm.
seen, like that would be a really cool experience to see all that going and happening that fast, and have it not only IMAX but 3D as well. That would be a really cool experience, I think. But thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for and hopefully you're able to get down there for that one.
Yep.
Next one is from Lucid Truth. He's one of our Patreon members. Do you think there will be any other surprise characters? I'm not sure we need more, but what would be something cool? So this goes back to this is a question that comes up a lot with movies and TV shows: is who are the cameos? Who's going to show up suddenly in some of this stuff? Do you see anybody there for you?
Um, I, I could see
Moff Gideon. No, I'm kidding.
no, I could see Luke Skywalker,
Uh,
which can kind of tie in like to the lightsaber thing. We could see a flash to Ahsoka trapped in the other universe world. I, the reason why I'm hesitating because I hope we don't. I've always been a proponent of if 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 you're going to have the title of a story be the names of the main characters, let that be the focus of the movie or the TV show. Because if you bring someone big like that back,
Vader, aka Maul, Shadow Lord.
correct, they take over the show, and then you have to do something with them.
Mhm.
So I hope we don't get a big cameo, but if I had to place a bet, I would say the one that we would see that has the most possibility of showing up would be Luke Skywalker.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't necessarily need it. I love it. I know people don't like it, but it's always grounding for us, to see like a Luke Skywalker or a Leia, to know that okay, yeah, we are in that same era of Star Wars. So maybe it's somebody like a Holdo. Maybe it's somebody. It doesn't have to be anybody big. Maybe it's somebody like an Akbar who's giving commands, right? As a small cameo piece there. Maybe it's Leia on Hollow if they want to go that route. But I think again, based on what we've seen so far, I don't know that we're going to get any big cameos out of this movie. I think Embo is probably as deep as we go. I don't know that the Empire shows up or remnants of the Empire shows up. Maybe we get like a Paleon reference there at some point. I don't think we're even going to see Thrawn, unfortunately, because of what I said earlier, where I don't feel like this movie is going to play into like the larger narrative or galaxy at large contention. It just doesn't feel like that. So Omera, that's my guess. I hope we get Omera as a cameo.
Yeah, that would be a good one, and that's definitely out of left field because she was not on my radar.
Oh man, she's been on my radar, and that sounds creepy. That's not what I meant. I just meant like on my radar for Mando because I thought that was a great moment.
Great save.
Yeah. Okay.
Our next question comes from Mara Jadery. Where would you guys like to see Mando and Grogu go next in terms of narrative or adventure? It feels like their story may be coming to an end, but I don't think the fans are ready for that just yet. And we've kind of already spoke about this, so I'm just going to reiterate what we said. I think that from what I think is going to happen in this movie is we're going to start to see the beginning of the end of Mando's story. The story will shift to Grogu being the main hero of this part of the Star Wars universe. That's what I think is going to happen. And again, I'm not saying that, Din Djarin's going to get killed off in this movie or anytime in the future. I'm just saying his story as being the hero of this part of Star Wars. I think we're going to see the beginning of the end of that arc for Din Djarin, and we're going to see the beginning of the hero arc for Grogu.
Okay. I'm with you. Like, I do feel like it is kind of winding down, for lack of a better term. But on one hand, if I had to entertain the question and where I would really want this to go, because I'm not ready for this to be over, quite honestly. And maybe they are. I don't think I am. And maybe that's where Mara Jader is coming from. If I go back to the television series, some of the themes that they were exploring were kind of identity, self-identity, and specifically, what does it mean to be a Mandalorian? Right? Whether it's following the code in this draconic way or being more of the moderate Mandalorians where they're taking off helmets and they don't have all the formal stuff going on. Right. And then it turned into like, okay, well, you're a clan, but we're bringing in people that are not from Mandalore, like in the example of Grogu. When I was watching the television series, I had this theory that at some point Boba Fett would, after he had been raised from the dead, would suddenly join forces with Mando. And he would become the third member of that clan, right? Kind of starting up. And that was really a kind of a way to tell Boba Fett, but look, there's been a lot of debate over the years about whether or not he was a Mandalorian, right? Because of his dad being cloned and all that stuff. Is he truly a Mandalorian? And based on the themes that we were kind of seeing, the trend that was going along, I was thinking that would be a great opportunity to bring Boba Fett into the mix and say, look, other people may not see you as a Mandalorian, but I see you as a Mandalorian. And we see you as a Mandalorian, and you're part of our clan of 3 now, kind of thing. I would love to see that continue, and I would love to see that, be kind of where they go with it, and kind of because we've got Mandalore to rebuild, and maybe that's not the Mandalorian's job now at this point. I think in season 3, it was kind of clearly handed off to Bo-Katan to do, and rightfully so. I think that is the right decision. In my head, I was thinking, he would be the one that kind of reunited the clans all over again with the Darksaber, right? As it was told way back in the day with Vizsla, the original one. I thought we were going to be following that. It was kind of going to be the blueprint or the DNA for what we would expect to happen down the road. That didn't turn out to be the case. If it does, again, it's probably going to be Bo-Katan who does all of that. But I think there's a role for the Mandalorian to play in all of that. The problem with that is a very isolation. There's a lot of isolationism that happens in that story. They're confined to Mandalore, they're confined to Concordia, and they're not really going to be out, gallivanting across the galaxy because there's a lot of crap they got to clean up. That planet's wrecked, that's been scorched by the Empire. They've got clans scattered everywhere, so they've got to get all those guys together. We don't know what Thrawn's going to do. I suspect those two are going to kind of come to a head where Thrawn's got his group and the witches and whatever else, and they're going to maybe go head to head with the Mandalorian and Mandalore. But there's a lot of rebuilding that has to happen. And that kind of puts Mando in this kind of, secondary role where he's not necessarily the main character, but I would like to see him help with that. I think that he's got I think he would have he would kind of owe it to himself or be an example to everybody of somebody who's walking both paths, if you will, between the old group versus the new group, and saying, look, we are all still Mandalorians and we can all still get together. So I hope that's where it would go. I don't know how exciting that would be. That feels like it's more season 4, right, than it is another movie. But I would love to see them kind of revisit that, because that was my headcanon going into season 3.
No, I agree. I think that would be a good something good to explore if we do get a season 4.
Yeah. But great question. All right. Is this mine or yours? I already forgot. I was talking to you.
So, Sithy Minutes. That's a great name, by the way.
The podcast, by the way.
Do you think Ray Sloan will ever be in the Mandoverse? She had books, video games, comic, and reference book appearances, but nothing in terms of movies or shows, despite this being part of the timeline where she wields incredible influence. So I cannot answer this question because I don't know who that character is.
Allow me to crack my knuckles, and I'll keep it brief. So Ray Sloan is probably one of the coolest, underrated, non-spoken about characters ever created. She is a Grand Admiral in the Empire. She's still alive, at least by. Okay, let me back up. So she was she kind of came up through the ranks of the Empire. She showed up in was a book, A New Dawn, I think was her first one, where she was after Kanan Jarrus for a little while there. She was kind of chasing him. She moved up to the ranks. She kind of foiled this plot. They were trying to kill the Emperor and Darth Vader. So she's kind of like a company man, a company woman, if you will. She's very loyal to the Empire. At least to and a lot of that stems from her background, where she was kind of saved by the Empire. She saw them as saviors, as the saviors of the galaxy. And because they rooted out some folks that were, going against her people on her own planet. All right. Anyway, she goes up through the ranks, and eventually she's one of the last admirals that's around during the Battle of Endor, right? So after the second Death Star blows up, she's one of the main admirals that pulls back everybody and says, let's get out of here because this war is over, kind of thing. And then she gets kind of caught up in the Battle of Jakku, where Operation Cinder, right? That Palpatine had fired off, which was kill everybody in the rebellion and kill everybody in the Empire. Like, nobody lives if I die, kind of thing. Well, she was in the middle of all that. She ends up kind of foiling that. She survives all that, and she leaves Jakku along with Brindle and Armitage Hux, right? So we see Colonel Hux,
right?
What was his commander? What was his rank in? General Hux. Sorry,
General Hux. You mean in the First Order?
Yeah, in the First Order. So she leaves. Hux, yeah. She leaves with him and his dad, who also shows up in the Phasma book as well, right? We get to see a lot of Brindle Hux in that movie.
He also shows up in the Mandalorian season 3.
Season 3, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this time, so catching up where we are now, going back to the question is, do we see her? I don't know why they are purposely trying to avoid this, quite honestly, because she is one of the very few Grand Admirals that's alive. The other Grand Admiral that we know is around is none other than Thrawn. So you've got Grand Admiral Thrawn, you've got Grand Admiral Ray Sloan. She's loyal to what would eventually become the First Order. I don't know where Thrawn's allegiance is, to be honest. Well, that's to be determined. I love that aspect about him. But if you think about season 3 of The Mandalorian, where we had the Shadow Council and all those people kind of showed up, and they were all the remnants that were remaining, it feels like somebody from that had to have been like a spokesperson for her. Because I think for all intents and purposes, she is alive. I don't think we have any reason to believe that she's dead. She just may not be out there at the forefront of things if she is truly, a Grand Admiral, and she's got people that are loyal to her. She's got her, I forget her Star Destroyer's name that she kind of flew off on. But the question about whether or not, will we ever see her in the Mandoverse? I think I would love to see her in the Mandoverse. I don't know why we don't. It doesn't feel like this is a character that we have to give, 10 episodes of background and context to. She's just another Grand Admiral that shows up, and we know that she's part of the remnants, and we can weave her in that. And then everybody else gets to snicker and smile and feel good about themselves, because we know more about that character than, 99% of the population that would see her in the Mandoverse. So, a great character. I'm with you. I'd love to see her, but right now I don't suspect that they would do that, because it feels like they've had a lot of opportunities to do it, and they've only done her in like comics and books, and I think she showed up in like one of the video games at one point. So, yeah, Keep your fingers crossed still.
Hey, she could have a card in that deck of cards.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So
maybe they're after her. That would be a good Easter egg. I think that would be a really cool Easter egg to show that she's one of the people that is still on the radar somewhere.
Yeah.
But shout out to Sithy Minutes. Again, they're a podcast out there. So thank you guys for chiming in. Oh, they had one more question. Oh, no, that wasn't it. That was a different one. Okay, Julian DePolo. Do you wish this movie had more connections to the bigger Star Wars universe, like Mando Season 2 finale, and or connections to Ahsoka's Star Wars, SW? Not sure what that is. Or do you prefer it's kind of a standalone, and why? I think this is one we've already talked about. I don't think I would rather the movie be part of something larger. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. If I did want it to be a part of something, it feels like it'd be more of the Mandalorian and Thrawn's return than Ahsoka, although I get it's all kind of connected. So I don't see how you get around not having Ahsoka tie into this at some point. I think that was the original vision of where all this was going to go before the mix up and, we dropped some of the titles and Cara Dune was no longer a character that was in the forefront. I think a lot of that changed it, changed the trajectory, saying nothing of the fact that Dave Filoni is now the president and Kathleen Kennedy is gone. I'd love to see that, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I do feel more and more that this is just going to be kind of a standalone movie and it's going to be a great ride, but probably not the beginning of anything for the bigger universe. That's still to be determined. I can't see them not having a plan. I can't see them not having a vision of what the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like. And I think it's going to include the Mandalorian, and I think it's going to include Ahsoka and maybe some other characters. But what are your thoughts?
So I think we might get like name drops or little references to the bigger Star Wars universe, whether it's, the stuff from the Skywalker saga or stuff from other Mandoverse characters like Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew. We might get little references to that. I don't think it's going to be a straight up connection. I agree with you. I think they're going to make this a standalone initially. And then what they could do, and properties do this all the time, is you'll have this and then say, years down the line, we finally get a movie that ties into it. They're going to probably reference like one scene and be like, okay, this is where these two movies connect. But I don't think it's going to be an obvious connection. I do think this is made to be a standalone. I think it's made to move Mandalorian and Grogu's character forward. I would love to see, like you said, Albert, I would love to see it be connected to the bigger Mandoverse of what's coming. I don't think we're going to get that. I think we might get a reference or two, but I don't think we're going to get a flat out connection.
Yep. 100%. Good question. Thank you, Julian. And he had another question, but we've already answered. It was about the cameo. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead. You got the next one here from Reader Reborn.
A Patreon member, Reader Reborn.
He's with us. I think he was anyways.
Yeah, he was. Hopefully he's still with us in the chat so he can hear us ask his question. Is Road of the Hutts arc going to lead to an alliance between Hutts and Mandos? And how will that affect the ongoing underworld power struggle? So that's a good question. And I'm going to say that no. Based off what we've seen so far, I think something is going to go wrong with that whole, hey, you need to rescue Road of the Hutt. And it's essentially to frame Mando and then kill him. Not that he's going to die, but that was the plan of the Hutts. I think what we're going to see, and I'm trying, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying, I think we're going to see a story point where the Hutts use Rhoda to kind of double cross Mando, capture him, and then, do what they want to do with him. I don't think we're going to see any type of alliance between the Hutts, the Mandos, the New Republic. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to get there, especially the Mandalorian. He says something at the very beginning during that first 25 minutes that we saw. He says something that I don't want to spoil it, but he says something that makes it really hard to get there, at least for him. Can I see a situation where Road of the Hutt allies with the Republic, like we talked about earlier? Yes, definitely. I think that's a possibility, just given that he's not attached to his family. I can't say much because there's stuff that happens in that 25-minute preview that we saw that really brings to question what Road of the Hutt's role is in all of this. And I'll say this, and I apologize if this is spoiler, but today there was another TV spot that was released, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, but there's a moment there where Rhoda the Hutt is fighting stormtroopers. Did you catch that?
I did not. Now I have to go find it.
Yeah, it's very quick, but he's like, I won't even explain it. But for all intents and purposes, there's no reason to think that he's allied with the Empire. I don't have a reason to think that he's allied with the Hutts. I think he probably wants to stay away from that crap and really just wants to live his own life. And he's got a good life, right? And we've seen him. He's being glorified. He's a champion. He's got all this fame and glory. So will it be enough for Mando to come around to liking him? Probably at some point if they want to pursue that. I think it's still going to be a lot because he's got a lot of negative feelings towards the Hutts. But the Hutts themselves, there's never been a time that, at least to my knowledge, where the Hutts have been the good guys or allied with anybody that's good. They've always been the proverbial bad guys, the antagonists, the scum, the evil people, always trying to foil plans and selfish and disgusting and nasty. That's just who they are. So, could we go into an era where that's not the case? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to be in this movie, and I don't think they're going to try to allude to it. So, okay.
I would agree to that. Yep.
All right, let me go back to, I need to pull up the question. So that was from Reader Reborn.
Reader Reborn.
Yep. Okay. So Justin Heimbach, who was, I think was it with us earlier, if you're still there, if you're not asleep. He says, do we think we get a Thrawn name drop or even a hint of his return via the Shadow Council? Probably not. Because I think once you do that, I mean, it makes sense for me. Like I feel like you should have things connected. Especially since we're in this era of Thrawn and seasons 1 through 3 were all about this looming presence, the inevitable return of Thrawn. And then suddenly we get a movie about the Mandalorian Grogu and we don't. That would feel weird. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but it feels like that could be weird. I feel like there should be some kind of hint that his coming is still inevitable. But if really this story is truly about rescuing Rod of the Hutt and saving him, allying with him, and the bad guys really are the twins, then I don't know how you get there, quite honestly, right? It just doesn't feel like there's going to be enough time. And that really begins the world building aspect of it all, and which I don't think is going to happen, to say it one more time. But what do you think?
There's always a possibility that we could get a name drop. Like I mentioned previously, I think we're not going to get a flat out connection to anything outside of this movie to other areas of the Mandoverse. But could someone drop Thrawn? Yes. We have, Colonel Ward, who, her bio says, she came up through the rebellion, fought with Leia and whatnot. Thrawn had to have been a topic of conversation. So and keep in mind, just in the Ahsoka season 1, Hera had to go to the New Republic Council and mention Thrawn. So it's not like his name has disappeared. She might be the one to bring it up, but it's always a possibility for a name drop. I would probably say it's 60-40, not going to happen, but you never know. There's always a possibility.
Okay. We'll see. Yeah. We're only a few more days away.
And the next one is from Dante.
We got 2 more left, by the way.
Yeah, 2 more left. Yeah. One from Dante, from Patreon. Would y'all in general prefer a story be a movie or a TV series? What would push a story to be preferred in one format or the other? So for me, and I know a lot of people will say, well, the effects, would I prefer, if I'm an effects person, I want to see, spaceships and explosions and stuff. You would prefer a movie. If that's not important, you would prefer a TV show. For me, it's different. If a story can be told in 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes, make it a movie. That's fine. If there's some world building or character building that you definitely couldn't put in a 2-hour movie, then make it a TV show. Even if you have, yes, you may have like a trilogy planned out of movies, like, everything in Star Wars seems to be a trilogy, at least it was. But if it's a situation where the character development and the story development is a slow burn, do a TV show. because then you can have up to 10 hours worth of content to tell your story, to burn that storyline and to burn the character development versus just 2 hours. And if you really have something that needs to have that development, it would sit better in a TV series type of format than a movie, because you're limited on time. And if you sell the development short, that's going to be a knock against the movie. So I guess story and character development would be the determining factors for me on whether a project should be a movie or a TV show.
Hmm. Man, this is a very complex question for me. Like, I don't have the time to get into all the details, because I've actually thought about this quite a bit outside of the question. So I think the decision to go movie versus television series has a lot to do with executives and financial situations and things like that have nothing to do with the story itself, right? If it were my preference, I would actually, I seem to enjoy it. I think it depends on the content too. Like, I've enjoyed when they've expanded on books in TV series more than I have movies. The only exception would be Lord of the Rings, but that's because those movies were like 4 hours each. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much time that they spent on those movies that, as a fan of the Lord of the Rings books, like, I got a lot of what I wanted out of it. When I think about series like right now, I don't know if you're watching Lord of the Flies. They've done a television series, which is great. And they've really allowed, because it's a television series, they've allowed a lot of time to spend and get into all the finer points of the book. Think about like the Harry Potter movies. You know, those were, the first couple were a little fumbly and weren't that great for me personally, but they got better over time. But there was so much that was ripped out of those books. And now we've got a television series out, and that feels like the right thing to do because you have so much more time to spend with all of that. But those decisions feel like they're more about, they're not necessarily creative decisions as they are like, what's the overall strategy for that company in the space of television versus movies. There's nothing to say they couldn't take any television series and say, you know what, well, you need to turn this into a movie. They bring in a writer, they hack at the script, and they turn it into a movie. We see that all the time. You know what I mean? So it's possible they could take anything, and then they could take a movie and expand that out into a television series. You know, if they go that way, then you get a lot of fluff and you get a lot of, quote, throwaway episodes and things like that. It feels like they really just try to expand this when it could have been a movie. It's hard to say. I think personally for me, though, which goes back to the question, is which do we prefer? I think for Star Wars, you know, I think movie is the right way to go for Star Wars. Okay. That said, we've had some really, really good television series. Yeah. Maul, Shadowlord, Andor. Those two are kind of standouts. You know, Star Wars Rebels was a cartoon. I thought they did a great job. They felt like that was the perfect amount of episodes, and we got into. I love Star Wars Rebels so much because I got an episode every single week and got to know those characters over the course of many years, as opposed to just going in for a 2-hour movie. So. There's good and bad. I think when I think of Star Wars, I think movies first, but there is a strong case for so much of this to go into the TV format. And I think we've had a chance now to see how enriched those stories become in Star Wars when it does go that way. But I don't know. I got a lot to say on that still, which that's my condensed version because we're going on 2 hours here. So thanks, Utini, for that question. All right. Last question. This is from Maddie D, another Patreon member. Do you think they make any mention of Project Necromancer, or do you think that plot line is more or less dropped? So anybody that's not, Necromancer was the, rebirthing of the stormtroopers that we got in season 3, Mando. What do you think?
I don't think we're going to hear about that. I don't think it's necessarily gone. I don't think that plot point is gone. I just don't think we're going to hear about it in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think to me, again, that feels more part of that, like the larger world building stuff. And, it feels like if Thrawn is going to come back, he's going to need an army. And that might be a way for all that to happen. Actually, I'm crossing stream here. Project Necromancer.
I thought Project Necromancer. Palpatine.
Yes, I apologize. I was thinking about the rebirth of the stormtroopers.
Yeah, Omega.
Yeah, whatever Grogu's that was.
Blood, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, sorry, my bad. Okay, somebody revoke my Star Wars card. Project Necromancer was Palpatine coming back. Okay, that's a big no. Like I don't see that happening at all, because I think that story needs to be told. Whether it happens in a movie, likely not going to happen. A television series, maybe, depending on how far they want to go out with the timeline. If they're ever going to revisit that and give us a lot of background on it, it feels like that's a really safe option to go with a comic book or a series of books or something to get into, because it's kind of a niche kind of aspect of Star Wars. So I'd love to. I'm down for it. Like, I need to know more about it. I need to know all the details around freaking Snoke and the test tubes, and his rebirth, and what Exegol was like, and all that kind of crazy black magic stuff they were doing to get him to be alive. Like, I need to know all of that stuff that was going on with Project Necromancer. But I just don't know that we're going to get that in this series or in the Dave Filoni verse. It just feels like that's going to be tabled and
that's going to be
picked up by somebody
different.
down the road.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Plus, I think a lot of I don't want to say, I'm sure there are fans that are still burned by somehow, and I don't think
somehow Palpatine's return.
Yeah, I don't think they'll introduce him, his name or this project in this movie. I don't think we're going to hear about it. I don't think the plot line is dead. Again, I don't think it's dead. I think it's still active, because it happens, right? So it's actively active in the universe, but I just don't think we're going to get a mention of it in this movie.
Yeah. But I think, and if this is where you're coming from, Maddie, it's fascinating. Like, it's really something that that has a lot of people interested, and we want to know more. So to your point, maybe we need to have this, like, so at some point they got to give us that storyline and give us some background there. Okay, well, that was the last of the questions, and I think that's going to bring our show to an end. So thank you guys for joining. I'm kidding. We're going to announce the winner. So
I was about to say.
So I did do a random number while we were waiting here over on Google, and the winner is, there we go, Mara Jadery. So Mara, congratulations on winning the first poster. This is yours here. I'll get it wrapped up into a tube and shipped off to you. I don't remember how you reached out, but I'll reach back out to you, and then we can arrange for all that to happen. So congratulations to you. Don't forget, next week when we do, or this Sunday, we'll do the second poster giveaway this Sunday on our kind of breakdown show. That'll be a public show, even though it's Sunday, it's typically Patreon. That'll be a public show. So between now and Sunday, 8 p.m., an hour before we go on the air, submit your questions. You can do it now, or you can go watch the movie and come back with questions, whatever you want to do. But we'll give our second poster away this Sunday and do the whole same thing here over again. So good luck to everybody else. And don't forget, we've got at least 4 more posters to give away, maybe more, just depends on how the content rolls out. So thank you guys for your questions, though. Those were really good stuff, and it was fun to answer too.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for sending in questions. And I'm looking forward to the next batch.
Yeah. Okay, we'll wrap up things. Let's see. Did you get names for everybody that joined us on live?
I sure did. So thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat tonight. Dale E. Skywalker, Jeremy Reese, N8YP, your brother Alex, Mudhorde Station, One Up versus CPU 64, Riley K268, Strong Mustachio, my girl Vanessa, Limi La Time, aka Jorge Castro, and Justin Huber 96. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. Oh, sorry. One Up versus EB said, where do we submit questions? You can submit them anywhere you'd like. So if you want to send us an email, you can email us at hello@cantinacast.com, or you can hit us up on any social media platform. Just send us a direct message. We'll respond there. I will give you a thumbs up, or I'll let you know that I've got it recorded. So if you don't get an acknowledgement from me, ping me back just to make sure, because they're kind of coming in from a lot of different angles here. Or if you're a Patreon member, you can just send us a DM there on Patreon and shoot us your question. So every week, don't forget to send us a new question so we can get you entered in to win one of the posters. So, okay, that's it for us. I know we've gone really long, but don't forget, the next episode will be a breakdown of the Mandalorian Grogu. Have fun this week for anybody that's going to see those movies. It should be a lot of fun. I think we're going to all have a good time, especially if you're watching this stream or listening to the podcast. This is a movie that I think we're all going to really enjoy and have a great time with it. So go in with those expectations, and remember that this is a fun thing to experience. And then lastly, tomorrow we will be back here tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night to do a Road to Celebration. So we'll talk about the hangover, the ticket buying process, and all the latest updates on what that's looking like right now ahead of Celebration. That'll be a lot of fun to kind of get everybody's stories on the war stories that we went through
Right.
in order to buy tickets this year, which is absolutely nuts. So
it's nuts. Yeah. It was easily the most difficult situation to try to get tickets.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
All right. We'll leave it there. And thank you guys again for joining us tonight. And we'll see you all here on the next episode.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.